Where the great Awo passed on?
This was where he passed on.
What happened in the bathroom?
I don't know. I simply fell on his body. I just fell on his body and lay there, and they had to pull me off.
He told you, I am a mystic.
Yes.
Read the future.
He could.
Some have described him as the modern day Oduduwa. Does that define the mystic nature of Awo?
He came from such a humble beginning. He was able to rise to where he still is. He still occupies, 37 years after his death, he still occupies a unique place.
He listed some books he was reading. At the beginning, he didn't believe in God. He was a member of the Rosicrucian order. Dr. Tokunbo Awolowo-Dosumu, it's good to have you on State Affairs.
Thank you for having me.
We are in the house of Awolowo. I feel Awo. I feel the spirit of Awo. As a daughter of Awo, do you feel the way I feel?
Oh yes, of course I do. This is home. I don't actually live in this house, but every time I come into the house, there's an aura. Yes, because this is where Papa lived to the end of his life, and this is where Mama lived to the end of her life. So this is where they both passed on. So there's a spirit here that is special. Yes.
This was where the great Awo passed on?
This was where he passed on, upstairs. And Mama passed on in her room downstairs. How many years later? A few years later.
The great Awo passed on in 1987.
Yes.
What was that day like?
My goodness. It was traumatic. It was a traumatic day. I'll tell you, I saw him by some strange coincidence. He died on Saturday. We don't know what time it was on Saturday morning. But Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I saw him on each of those days. On Wednesday, I was at work, and I just felt like giving him a call, and I called him. I said, I would like to come and see you. He said, come along. So I just came. He was in his office above the library down there. And we just simply chatted. Mama was away in Ibadan to represent him at some book launch or some event. So when Mama arrived, she joined us in the office. And I just had a good time with him and Mama. And I left and went back to Lagos. On Thursday, he was the one who called me in the office in the afternoon and said, do you want to come and see me? I said, yes. He said, okay, bring Boju along. Boju is the nickname he gave to my daughter. That's her there. Because she couldn't say Boju very well. Her nanny at that time was from Benin Republic, so she adopted the accent of her nanny. So he said, bring Boju along. So I said, of course I will. So I called my sister, Mrs. Shoade. I said, I'm going to Ikene. Papa said we should come and visit. And she said, yes, I would like to come along. So she came. We met up at my house and we came. And so we had a good time with him, a really good time in his bedroom. Then on Friday, he had an eye appointment with Professor Mrs. Oluni. So I had to come back again. And on that day, Mrs. Oyeduno accompanied Professor Oluni, and we were in his room. And he said, and Mrs. Oluni was saying, Papa, you read too much, you write too much, you are doing too much work. And he turned around and looked Professor Oluni in the face. He said he would work until the day he died. That was what he told Mrs. Oluni.
That was not negotiable.
No. So, when he finished, he came downstairs to that room there because he needed a haircut. The barber was already waiting. Alhaji Gbadamosi was also here. So when I was leaving, they were both in that room, Papa and Alhaji Gbadamosi. Papa had the barber cloth round his neck. That was my last picture of him. So I went in to say goodbye. I said I was leaving. He said, I want you to come back. No. That was on Thursday. He told me he wanted to, when I came back on Friday, that I should prepare to stay overnight, Friday to Saturday. But when I arrived, he said, where is Buju Buju? I said, she's not here. He said, so you're not staying? I said, no. And he looked crestfallen. I can never forget. And I regret that. I will regret that forever. He sat on his bed. I sat on the chair by his bed. And we were chatting, but he didn't look me in the eye. And then when my sister came and all of that, and then so when I was going, I said, I will see you on Monday. And he said, his last words to me, he said, Oma Kenyu.
Meaning?
Meaning, your child will take care of you.
Did you understand what that meant?
I had no idea. I didn't think it had any significance on that day.
What do you think now?
Now I know that maybe he was just saying goodbye. Nobody thought that he was going to die. There was no sign at all that he was about to pass on. So, I just left. And Mama was supposed to come to a wedding. She and I were supposed to go to the wedding together. So she was supposed to come to my house on Saturday morning. So I was dressed and waiting for Mama to come. And quite unlike her, she was very late. I waited and waited. So when I heard the sound of a car at the gate, I looked out from the window. I was expecting it to be Mama's car, but rather it was my husband's car. And because the plan was that we would go to the wedding, Mama would drop me at the clinic where my husband was working, and then he and I would come home to our house in Lagos. But when I saw his car, I was filled with dread, and I flew literally down the stairs. I opened the front door. I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, one of our cousins, Barrister called him to say that Papa was not feeling well. And I said, so if Papa isn't feeling well, why are you here? Have you called his doctor? Um, what exactly are you doing here? He said, well, I think we should go and see him. We used to do that, and in the past, when he wasn't feeling well, I would go or he would go and we would sort things out. And so I thought, okay, maybe there was nothing to worry about. So, but I cried all the way from Lagos to here, to Ikene.
Why? Why?
I don't know why.
Because at that time you've not been told the story.
I know.
And
but
yet
I
you cried
all the way to Ikene. Then when we got into town, I was looking for signs of commotion or whatever, but everything was calm. There was no sign that there was anything until we got to this compound. We got to the compound, the gardeners were doing their work. The compound was serene. One of his stewards opened this door. I said, Shadrach, where is Papa? He said he's upstairs. Where is Mama? She's upstairs. Okay, so I went up the stairs gingerly. I knocked on Papa's door. There was no answer. I tried to open the door. It was locked. So I tried to open Mama's door. That was locked too. So I knocked, and one of the ladies that were looking after Mama was the one that opened the door, and her face just told me the story. Nobody needed to say anything, and there was a blackout, I think, for me. There was a complete blackout. I don't know what happened for the next few minutes. And then when I came out, Mama said, well, this is what happened. My Papa had woken up in the morning, but he locked the door to go to the bathroom and all of that. And but that after a few minutes, she thought he should have come out of the bathroom. And she knocked gently. No answer. Knocked loudly. No answer. Then she called his driver of 40, 50 years. Went to call him. And they took a big stick. And at that point, they knew that there was something seriously wrong. So she told me all of that. And so I said I wanted to see him. So they opened the connecting door between Mama's room and his room, and I simply fell on his body. I just fell on his body and lay there, and they had to pull me off. No, it was bad. It was a bad day. And I knew I had lost a vital pillar.
He wasn't
in
ill?
My life. No, he wasn't. He actually had a workout about 2 days before. Everything was all right. His ECG was fine. Everything was fine.
So what happened in the bathroom?
I don't know. I think it was just one of these sudden death syndromes. Nobody will ever be able to tell that story. But I think he just maybe had a catastrophic event.
What kind of father was he?
He was different from every other father that I knew. he loved his children very deeply, very, very deeply. But he had the dilemma, which, looking back now, at my age, he also knew he had a mission to fulfill. So that was the dilemma, sharing the time between what he had to do for others and what he had to do for his children, his family. So what he did, when I was really little, when he was going to the office, he would call me to carry his briefcase or his files to put in the car. I think that was just his way of telling me that, there was a bond, So I put the briefcase or the files in the car, and when he arrived from work, he would whistle. He had special whistles for all of us. But I think because I was the youngest one, I was the carrier of the whole family. Ola Tooks, that was the whistle. He had a parrot at that time that used to mimic that whistle, that stupid parrot. So he would whistle, and I would run downstairs and get his stuff into the house. And then he always had a box of chocolates in his drawer. When you were good, you got a chocolate or two. And when you were bad, you could forget it. But then as we grew older, he used to have sessions with us, special sessions. We would sit and chat, and he would talk to us, philosophize. I remember one special session. Sometimes we would do just sing together, hymns. There was one special session in this sitting room here, which I will never forget. It was he and his children. And he said, just out of the blue, he said, do you realize that my name, that is his name, has taken a life of its own? Well, there was no answer to that one. He said, even I, referring to himself, even I use that name. And he said, if you use that name is available to all of you to use. If you use it wisely, it will work for you. But if you don't, you're on your own.
What name?
His name.
Awolowo.
Yeah. I think it meant more than that. That if you use the connection, the fact that you are his child, not necessarily call yourself Awolowo, but if you make it known that you are related to him or that you are his offspring, it will work for you. But if you don't, he said, you are on your own. But before he started saying that, the first thing he said was that you do realize that I'm a mystic. And I just thought, where is Papa going with this one? And so that's was one particular session that I will never forget. But he tried to make time. Sometimes we would just sit and chat, and he was quite a humorous person, actually.
Humorous?
Yes, humorous.
He made you laugh?
Yes. And sometimes we would tease him because he didn't have time for all these colors, turquoise and all these funny colors, and we'd say, Papa doesn't know colors. I know colors. I can match things together. I don't have to know what their names are, those colors. I just, it's just things like that. And sometimes when he wanted to go out, he would wear something so casual, maybe Ankara or cotton fabric. And Mama would say, where are you going? And he said, I'm going to so. You cannot go out in this outfit. It's not possible. He said, what's wrong? It's clean. It's neat. That was his favorite word. It's neat. So what's wrong with it? And Mama would say, no, this is not. So, he was...
So what would he do? Would he change?
He would change.
So Mama had that...
Mama had that...
influence on him?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So he would change. And when he went shopping, he was the easiest person to go shopping with. If he wanted to buy shirts, for court, as long as he got into the shop, they showed him the first shirt they show him. If it's his size, he will buy 12. Papa, people buy different styles, and no, he will just give me 12. This one. The same thing with shoes. His favorite shop was Bali. He said, I want a pair of black shoes, a pair of brown shoes, a pair of blue shoes, and all that. And the first one, as long as it fit his foot, he said, yes, this is it, give me 3 pairs. Because he always bought 3 pairs, one for each house.
Okay.
So, and I always used to say, Papa, you can't do this. How can you let them bring more? That's a complete...
Doesn't have that time.
No, that's a complete waste of time. This is good. What's wrong with it? What is wrong with this one? Give me 3 pairs.
He was more concerned about other things.
He was more interested in getting back to the hotel to read his books, because that's what he used his holidays to do: read books, write.
Read books, write. We'll come to that. Let's go back to those special sessions. What were the content of those special sessions? Did he give you political talks?
No, not political. Just lifestyle, life lessons.
Life lessons.
Life lessons.
Can we learn from those lessons?
Lessons in humility. Lessons in doing unto others as you want them to do unto you. Lessons as about doing good to people. And the rider to that being that don't ever expect that the person that you do good to is the one that will return it to you. Don't ever. He always used to say that you can do a kindness in Nigeria and get the reward in Australia. Those were his two. So he always used to say that, and he didn't suffer fools gladly, though.
Okay.
He didn't. He hated lies, and he didn't want us to do anything that would tarnish our own and his own image.
He told you, I am a mystic.
Yes.
Did you see the mysticism?
Well, yes, in a way, Papa was... we very quickly learned, okay, that if there was an issue, if there was a situation, and Papa got to know about it, his prescription was always right. If you did anything different, if you decided to do something different from what he advised, you always got into trouble. It was always, he was always able to spot the answer to so many issues.
He could read the future.
He could. There are several, even little things, big things. He was always spot on. So, we learned that if Papa said this is what you should do about this thing, it was always easier just to do it.
Some have described him as the modern day Oduduwa. Does that define the mystic nature of Awo?
Maybe in a sense. He was an unusual man. He was different from most other people that I know. He was able to rally people around him, despite the fact that he came from such a humble beginning. He was able to rise to where he still is. He still occupies, 37 years after his death, he still occupies a unique place in the story of this country, and globally he is recognized. And he drove himself until he earned the kind of education and the kind of respect that he felt would go with what his mission was. So Oduduwa, people call him the modern day Oduduwa.
They say he's a Yoruba deity.
Yeah. I don't go that far. I mean, I maybe some people see him as such, but I know that he was on a divine mission.
On a divine mission. I've read his works.
I have no doubt about that.
I see the depths in his work. From his work, I could understand the depth of his mind. You said he read and read and read. He was always reading.
He was always reading. That was his pastime. That was his passion. That was his, that was his pastime, really.
He read everything?
He read and read and read. He read all the time. And was always writing as well.
Reading and writing. So that's why he was deep.
I believe so, because he never tired of learning. He never tired of learning. For example, a lot of people didn't know that he was very, very interested in science. He had a science laboratory in the house in Ibadan. When we finish this interview and you go into the museum, you will see the remnants of the equipment that we rescued from that laboratory. It's in the museum.
What was he doing with the lab?
He was learning science. I don't know why he just decided. It was after he came back from prison. And he just decided he wanted to learn science. He wanted to learn chemistry, physics, and even biology. I remember sometimes when we were having a big do, and of course, you kill cows as you do. And there was one day, I was already a medical student, I think. Yeah, I was already a medical student. And I was home. And he said they should go and call me. He told the butchers that they should not, that when they opened up the cow, that they shouldn't take anything out until I came. So I came, and I pointed, these are the intestines, this is the liver, this is the kidney, this is the pancreas, this is the heart. And he was learning, he was listening so attentively, But, people like, he used to call professors from UI, from the UCH, and to come and take him through some of the things. He had books.
He calls them, they come to his house?
Yes, they would come to the house in Ibadan.
And he's listening to them?
Yes, they would teach him learning. He learned.
He was teachable?
Them. He was teachable, absolutely.
To be teachable is to be humble?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He was a very, very humble man.
He was a good listener?
Absolutely. That was why he was, one of the reasons, in my view, why he was such a good leader.
He listened.
He would listen very patiently. At meetings, he would listen to everybody, from the highest to the lowest, from the oldest to the youngest, even students. If they happened to be there, he would listen to them. People like Professor David Oke, Professor Banji Akintoye, they got close to him whilst they were students in UI.
He loved younger
Yes,
persons.
he listened to them. He listened to their contributions at a meeting, and he called them.
Did you sneak into some of the political meetings?
No, well, not until much later. But I see pictures of myself at some of those political gatherings. There was one picture that trended about 3 weeks ago, where he went to visit the Oba of Lagos, Adeniji Adele. He was in Mama was there, Chief Rotimi Williams was there, Alhaji Gbadamoshi was there, Chief Akinloye was there. And I was there. I was sat on his lap. I think I was like maybe 5 years old or 4 years old. So they used to take me to those. But when I grew much older, I used to take it upon myself to just go and accompany him to some of these meetings. I did it. I did that. I remember the special congress in October 1982, where the congress was held at the National Theatre, the European Congress, where they needed to thrash out the issue of primaries at the time. It was causing so much tension in the party, and it was, threatening the success of the party at the elections the next year. So, for reasons that I don't know, I can't remember why, rather than go to my office, I just drove to Park Lane and accompanied him to that meeting. And then after I had been at that meeting for a little while, I left for my office. Then I left my office again to come back to come and see what had happened. So, I was, I think by that time I had developed a kind of, I don't know whether you can call it compassion for him, because I saw his struggles, I saw his passion, and I just wished other people would see it and acknowledge it and cut him some slack,
Now, what were the kind of books he read? Were there some special books? Because in one of his memoirs, he listed some books he was reading. At the beginning, he didn't believe in God.
He did, and then he had some. Then he had some doubts. He went through a doubting period, and then he came back fully. Yes, he was. He belonged to the Fabian Society and all of that.
He was a member of the Rosicrucian Order?
Yes, he was, and he rose quite high in that.
How did you know? He didn't hide it from the children?
No, he didn't. It wasn't a secret at all.
Okay.
He used to go to their conventions in San Jose in California, and he used to go there. I don't remember whether it was an annual convention or whatever, but he used to go there. So he read those books. His favorite was one little book whose title I forget the title now, but it was a book about the philosophy of life. Did I say he played music?
No.
I didn't tell you.
No.
He has a harmonium. You will see the harmonium in the museum too. And anytime he traveled, that harmonium was always his hand luggage, because he couldn't afford to lose it. So he played that. I don't know all the other books that he read.
Okay.
Who knows what Papa used to read? He read everything. He read everything, anything that would teach him, or when he was doing research for a book. For example, in his book, Thoughts on the Nigerian Constitution, he said he had researched the constitutions of all the nations in the world. And then he went on to itemize them, which meant that he actually had read all those constitutions and read about all those countries. And then he came to his conclusion that in a country that is multilingual, multinational, the best constitution is a federal constitution. And in a country that is unilingual, unicultural, the best constitution is a unitary constitution. And if you if you swap that, you always get into trouble.
Perhaps Nigeria got into trouble.
So, he was a very thorough person. And he read books to edify himself, but also he read books not only to edify himself, but to be of value to humanity. So, that was Papa.
Did he inculcate that reading habit into you?
Not really. I must confess to you. I read, but I mean, I'm not Papa. Papa was just Papa.
He was in a world of his
He
own.
was in a world of his own, and he lived for others. He had a divine mandate. His mission, and he was fortunate to have a wife like Mama, who was so supportive. So supportive.
Mama had a lot of influence on him.
She did. But whenever there was an issue, I never saw them argue. Never. There was never an incident that they argued or they quarreled. I never saw that till Papa died. Never, ever. But Mama had a beautiful strategy. Beautiful. If there was an issue and Papa was saying, no, this is the way we are going, and no, and Mama felt that she would let it go. She would let it go. Maybe a day or two later, she would now introduce it in a roundabout. She was the perfect woman, Mama. She would introduce it in the roundabout way, and by the time Papa agreed to her position, he wouldn't even know what happened. You know, when I was a medical student and I was going into clinicals, you know, the first 2 years you do anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and that was just classwork. And then after that, you go into clinicals. And I studied in Bristol, in England. And those clinicals were in different hospitals. You had to travel to different hospitals for medicine, for surgery, for pediatrics, for psychiatry. You just kept traveling, and it wasn't easy. Mama came to visit me and thought, this isn't easy. You need a car. So when I came home on holiday, Mama said, she needs a car. She can't be traveling to all those far-flung places on public transport. And Papa said, no. She's too young to have a car. So Mama said, okay. So Mama surreptitiously made arrangements to buy me a car in the UK, a brand new car. She bought it, and then when Papa came to visit, I think it was my final year. Yes, it was, a year before my final year. I was having finals, exams. So he came to Bristol, and I met him at the rail station. When we got there, we walked to the car. He didn't say anything to start with. And so when he got in the car and got comfortable, he said, so this is the car that your mom said she wasn't going to buy for you. I said, yes, this is the car. And we laughed it off. He was...
So Mama was that rich that she could buy you a car at that time?
Mama was richer than Papa at some point.
Mama was richer than
yes,
Papa?
She was working. She was an entrepreneur of the deepest dye. Mama would do. She sewed those dresses that she was seamstress. She was textile. She sold vehicles. She did everything.
She was a businesswoman.
She was a businesswoman. So when the crisis came, thank God she was a businesswoman. When the crisis came, she actually loaned money to the Action Group at some point, because I saw references to that in some of the letters that Papa wrote to her from the prison. In one of them, Papa was saying, don't ask for that money back, because, you did what you needed to do and all of that. And she kept the home front running as well, because when the situation got really bad, and Papa felt that my sister, Mrs. Chode, and I, that our education might suffer, he said to Mama that she should ship us off to the UK. She could afford it.
She could afford it.
Mm-hmm. So she was the one that sent us off.
Awolowo in prison.
Mm-hmm.
The day he went to prison, what was the house like?
The day he was sentenced, I wasn't at home. It was in September. I think I was in school. But of course, it was a sad day, especially because our brother died tragically in a car accident on July 10. And one would have thought that on compassionate grounds, that that the situation would be different. But I think it was September 11 he was sentenced. So it was a very sad time. That was the year that I sat for my school certificate as well. So I actually didn't think I would make it, but to God be the glory, I did.
You went to St. Anne, right?
Yes.
Ibadan.
I was a boarder. When our brother died, I stayed at home for the rest of that second term. But then I went back to school for the third term because the school certificate exam.
Your brother died while he was on his way to
Lagos.
To Lagos,
yes.
From Ibadan.
Yes.
And it has to do with the same Awolowo case, right?
Yes, he was going to see Papa.
He was a lawyer then?
Yes, he was a lawyer. He graduated from Cambridge University, got a BA Tripos. They called it BA Tripos at that time. And then he was called to the bar at the Inner Temple, same as Papa. So, and then he immediately came back home in 1962. By the time he came back, they were already on restriction and house arrest, followed by the arrest for this treason trial. So, and he was holding fort at Papa's chambers in Ibadan. That was. Oh, he was a leader. He was bright. He was competent. I'm talking about my brother now. He was, he was a good son to have. He made them proud. He made all of us proud. Generous as well.
So Awolowo lost his first son
Yeah.
and went to prison.
Yes.
Tragedy for the family.
Tragedy. All through.
You feel Awolowo went to prison for political reasons?
Absolutely, I believe so.
You believe he did not commit treason?
No, he certainly didn't. Certainly did not. Those were trumped up charges.
Trumped up charges?
Yes.
By his opponent?
Yes.
Did you feel he played the wrong politics at that time?
No. No, he lived what he believed. The wrong politics in what sense? That
You feel that struggle with Akintola was called for?
it was a struggle between two political philosophies, and so it was. It was. Papa wouldn't give in for his political philosophy. He really would not. He wasn't that kind of person.
He was ready to go to prison for that?
Yeah, he believed in what he believed in, and unfortunately that put him in the way of the people in power, but he wasn't prepared to change that.
Mama was involved in that struggle too?
Yes.
How?
By supporting him.
Was there a struggle between the wives, Akintola and Mama? Akintola's wife and Mama?
I think there probably was, but just to the extent that each one was supporting her husband naturally. There are all sorts of stories about Mama having what do you call it? Coca-Cola.
The franchise.
This franchise, and no, it had nothing to do with nothing at all. Mama was a pure businesswoman that looked for her business everywhere. She had franchise from Nigerian breweries, from everywhere. She was selling everything that was going. So it had nothing to do with that.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people have been telling that kind of story, which is nonsense. It had nothing to do with that. Each person supported her husband naturally. So I think that's
So Awo in prison, did you visit him in prison?
several times. Several times. We even visited him in prison in Calabar.
In Calabar?
Several times.
So when you saw him in prison, can you tell me?
Yes, he always made sure that he was upbeat so that we wouldn't feel that he was. Whether he contrived it in order to make us happy, in order to not, how do I put it, in order to make us happy, in order to make us feel that it wasn't really that bad, or not, I don't know. But he was a very courageous person anyway. That was probably exactly how he felt, that he was there for a while and that he would come out someday, and that he wouldn't die there, and he said it anyway. So it was always he was always about us when we went to visit him. He wanted to know more about what we were doing, how we were doing, how we were getting on. He wanted to know more about us. It wasn't about him.
Did they treat him well in prison? Did he tell that story?
They did. They did. In fact, the prison superintendent that looked after him in Calabar died only recently, 3 years ago. I managed to get in touch with him before he died, and we spoke a few times. Mr. Owo, he looked after Papa very well, and he made sure that his food was safe, everything was safe around him. And I think the prisoners were also very kind to him. They also didn't think that she should be there.
You know, in court, before the judge sentenced him, he predicted the darkness that would follow his imprisonment. And we saw it in the Western region.
Yes.
And eventually there was a civil war. Today, the Igbo tribe, many in Igbo land, feel that Awolowo connived with the rest of Nigeria to deal with the Igbos. He was part of the war cabinet. He was the finance minister under Gowon. So when you reflect on how we won the Civil War and you look at the Nigeria of the moment, what runs through your mind?
What runs through my mind is that he did his best to avoid that war. He did his best to convince Ojukwu not to go to war. He actually went to visit Ojukwu in company of Professor Aluko and a couple of others. He knew that the West was not in a position to go into war at that time, because not only did we not have the men, there were also military bases stationed in the Western region. So the region, people in the region would be more or less sitting ducks. So he knew, and he had several conversations over the phone with Ojukwu and all of that. The irony is that when the Constitution, the Independence Constitution was being drafted, he proposed a clause that would make it possible for any region that wanted to opt out to do so. But I think Sir Ahmadu Bello supported that. But Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe opposed it. And so that clause didn't make it into the Constitution. That's the irony of all of this. And so he documented everything that he did before, during, and after the war. It's all very well documented. So I don't, because when I talk about it, I now become the butt of the angst of people who still believe that Awo was the ogre, the one that did everything bad to the East. That could not be further from the truth. The transcript of his conversations with Ojukwu when he went to the East, he wasn't even aware that they were being recorded. But after the war, when the federal troops moved in, they found all those tapes and they were transcribed, and they are in a book that was published by I forget his name. So it's so when I look at it, he was always a federalist. It all flows from all of that. Papa was always a federalist. He died a federalist. To the day he died, he didn't even believe in confederalism. He believed in federalism.
Did he die an unfulfilled man? He wanted to lead Nigeria.
Yes,
he made a turn.
He did all he could, but at the end, he died a fulfilled man because he knew he had given all he could. He had done his best. If you remember, at the end of the elections in 1983, he declared that he was no longer going to contest the elections any longer, and that if Nigerians needed his services, they knew where he was. And privately, he used to say to us and to his close associates that everything he ever prayed for in his life, God had granted to him, except one. And all the other prayers were for himself and his family and, for personal reasons. But that the only one that was not answered is the prayer of Nigeria. And he is not the only Nigerian, so as far as he was concerned, God has answered his prayers, and Nigeria will get there. He knew he had done his best, all he could. So he was fulfilled.
You were a member of the Jonathan National Conference.
Yeah.
You went there with some ideas of yours.
Absolutely.
Of what Nigeria should be. Can you share your ideas with me?
My idea is very simple. Nigeria should be a true federal, to run a true federal constitution. It should be a truly federal Republic of Nigeria.
How?
With the federating units having the considerable autonomy over their own affairs, over their own resources, and the center should just simply oversee certain areas like foreign affairs, military, and so on. And my idea actually is a little bit more radical.
Okay.
My idea is that in order to reduce the cost of governance, that the federating units should be fewer.
Okay.
So that you don't duplicate offices and officers and remunerations, etc. It's been done before. You can do it again.
So how many federating units are you looking at?
I'm looking at 6 geopolitical zones.
6 geopolitical zones.
And under those, the states have been carved out fine, but other things can be done, which we don't need to go into here to make sure. But the cost of governance would be considerably reduced. But where I say I'm even more radical is that I believe we should go back to the parliamentary system.
Parliamentary system?
Absolutely. Those were the ideas that I went with, to the parliamentary system, for many reasons. First of all, there's greater accountability, because I don't know whether it's weekly or bi-monthly, I can't remember. They have question time where they sit and they question the government. They question the head of the government about whatever they are doing or whatever they are planning to do. They question the ministers or commissioners or whatever you choose to call them. They have to come to that house to explain themselves regularly. But most importantly, the cost of election, because all you would have to care about, to worry about, is a federal constituency. That is your constituency. This issue of the whole country is your constituency will no longer be there. So all the expenses would be just within a federal constituency. A federal constituency, that's all. You don't have to print posters and have the coordinators all over Nigeria. And one of the benefits of that is that in a federal constituency, I don't know what your federal constituency is in Ibadan, where you live. It is small enough for all of you to know one another.
Yeah.
So the selection process will be more accurate. You know, you would know who is who. If they brought somebody that is not acceptable to the community, you will very quickly know. So, and then they will be easily accessible. I think those benefits should not be waved away.
And you think the earlier we did that, the better for Nigeria?
I believe so. I think at least it will set us on the path of rectitude.
Is this the Nigeria Awolowo dreamt of?
I think so. The Nigeria that Papa dreamt of was a Nigeria that was developed. Every citizen had a chance at life. Okay? Every citizen had access to education, to good health, to infrastructure, to, every citizen mattered.
So is this that Nigeria?
This one?
Yes, this present Nigeria.
We are not quite there yet, but...
we'll be there.
Yeah, I believe so.
You represented Nigeria in the Netherlands.
Yes.
As ambassador during Obasanjo's time.
Yes.
What was it like?
It was a very challenging assignment. It was a learning curve, a very steep learning curve. I've never been an envoy before. I've never been an ambassador. I was just thrown in at the deep end. But somehow, I had three things. I had the name, the Awolowo name, which I kept remembering Papa saying that you cannot despoil my name any longer. If you try, you are on your own. So I had that. Then I had the message of a new Nigeria. That Nigeria had now become democratic, and things were going in the right direction. And then I had myself to account to. So everything I did with the mindset of, okay, if you do this, when you get home at night, will you be able to look yourself in the mirror? And will you be able to sleep at night? So.
And you were satisfied?
I didn't do anything.
With your performance?
Yes, I was satisfied. And I'm glad that my hosts were also very satisfied.
Was it easy for you to take the appointment, considering that at some point Obasanjo was like Awolowo's enemy?
Well, that's life, That is life. It took Chief Obasanjo to recognize an Awolowo to represent Nigeria abroad, and in an important country like the Netherlands. Remember the story of the Good Samaritan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. His when the man was set upon and beaten within an inch of his life, 2 people passed by who should have looked after him. They didn't. It took the Samaritan, who were despised by the Jews at the time, to not only look after him, to take him to an inn and leave money. So,
Mama accepted it?
Oh yeah.
She did?
She did.
And you think if your dad was alive, he would have allowed you to be ambassador under Obasanjo?
When Papa came back from prison, Papa didn't really have political enemies. He didn't consider anybody his enemy. When he came back from prison, he reached out to as many as he could of his opponents. And when I was getting married, he made sure he invited as many of them as he could.
You got married in 1973?
That's right. You did your homework. And one of them responded, let's put it that way. And he brought a very valuable gift to me. And to the end of his life, he kept in touch with me. Anytime he came to the UK, he would call me. And when I came back to Nigeria, where he had died by then, his wife was still alive. She used to call me. She used to talk to me. And when my daughter was getting married, she bought the ashwebi. She knew she was too frail. I knew she was too frail to come to the wedding. But she bought ashwebi, and she sent me a truckload of drinks. So, Papa, as far as politics was concerned, he didn't make enemies, and he didn't consider himself anybody's enemy.
In fact, when he came back from prison, during the meetings of the leaders of Third,
Thank you for remembering that.
At that point, they were all asking for forgiveness, and they came together to make him the leader.
The leader of the Yorubas. So he and I have kind of tried to take after him. Some people who I knew were not in good terms with Papa, I have gone out of my way to make peace. On one occasion, I called traditional rulers, and I called some people, young and old, to come with me, and I took a gift and ended that there. So there is no point when you're trying to do good to now start forming enmities. No, the two don't go together.
Wow. So, has Obasanjo come here?
He's been here several times.
To the house of Awo?
Yes.
Did you ask him what happened in 1979? The election?
We never had that discussion.
Why?
It just didn't come up.
You're a medical doctor.
Yes, I am.
Do you still practice?
No, I don't practice any longer. When COVID came, I got emails from the General Medical Council that I should come back, but I didn't.
You are 76.
I am, indeed.
You are aging gracefully.
You are very kind. Thank you very much.
And do you feel we have recognized the contributions Awolowo made to Nigeria enough?
He's been recognized a lot, but he's still being recognized, even to this day. But more than that, there are people who swear by him, people who still love him so passionately that I used a quote in my speech on March 6th, and I repeated it on the in memoriam that I placed in the Tribune on May 9, on the 37th anniversary of his passing. And the quote is the second half of the quote. I won't say what the first part is, but the second part is, one wise man who forgot himself into immortality. That is Papa. He really spent his life for others. He spent his life totally for others. And today, it's 60 years plus since he left office. He's still being celebrated. So
you are the last child standing. Mom no more. You are an orphan.
I am. I am, I'm afraid.
Your brothers and sisters?
No brothers, no sisters.
Are you lonely?
I am, actually. I am. Because, I mean, there are certain things that you can only discuss with family. And certain things that only they can understand because of their age, because of shared existence, because of shared experiences. Only they can understand. Even the younger persons in the family cannot really understand some things. They can't. So, yes, it's lonely, but God is there.
And I must say thank you for driving the ideals of the Awolowo Foundation. And how far has the foundation gone in its activities? Are there challenges?
There are a lot of challenges, but what I decided to do when I set up the foundation, my vision is that Papa's legacy must not be allowed to die. That I must do whatever I have to do to sustain it, to keep it until a generation arrives on the scene that is looking for alternatives and maybe decide to go down the route of the Awo philosophy. So even though we don't get as much support as we think we should, as much support as we need to do everything that we should in order to do that, I have decided I'm determined to keep going. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. When we have support, we do what we can. When we don't, we adjust, but we keep going. So that's where I am. That's where I am with that.
Keep going.
We keep going.
Perhaps someday I'll give you a box of chocolate.
I'm too old to eat chocolates anymore. And I don't even encourage my children and grandchildren to eat chocolates anymore.
Why?
Yeah, it's not good for their teeth.
But I will give you chocolate.
I know. Maybe we didn't know.
Okay. And the chocolate from the cocoa farms, right?
No, they were imported chocolates at the time.
At the time? Wow. Thank you for letting us into the heart of Awo.
How long has this been now?
1 hour, 23 minutes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
A long one.
Thank you.